Hey, what is up, OGs and converts? This is the Leafs Convo podcast for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario, oakridgeford.com. I'm Norm, along with Mike. The Leafs, in the aftermath of a big trade deadline, losing two in a row, one to Montreal, another to Calgary. Mike, we're heading into the home stretch towards the playoffs. The Leafs have all of their players in tow pretty much. I mean, what are your thoughts post trade deadline and going forward here into this, final few weeks of the regular season?
Well, the game against Montreal was an inconsistent effort. They started real slow. Montreal scored the first two goals, and then the Leafs did well to fight back and tie the game, but then gave up the game winner. I think it was about a minute after they had tied the game. So they did all that work to get even, and then a bad turnover, and Josh Anderson goes down and blows it by Campbell. So, first of all, I'm not really concerned. They have a pretty big lead in the division, 7 points now. They're not completely whole because Nylander has been out for a week because of the COVID protocol, and apparently he's been negative, so he doesn't have it. We'll get into the COVID stuff a little later, but he'll be there. But Foligno is I guess either on his way or already in Toronto, and that means he starts his 7-day quarantine. And Ben Hutton, who they acquired from Anaheim, the same thing. And Sheldon Keefe has started to sort of rotate some people in and out of the lineup. They gave Jason Spezza a night off on Tuesday against Calgary. In the second of back-to-back, and they played Scott Sabourin for the first time this year, and he got into a fight with Milan Lucic. But after the game, he said, well, since I'm going to have some extra bodies around, I'm going to mix them in and give maybe some of the veteran players or some of the guys who played a lot of minutes a day off. And I don't think that's a bad idea as long as they maintain their position in the North Division.
This is the sneak show, the Convo for Oak Ridge Ford, Norman London, Mike in Buffalo. Ash is with us, so it's nice not doing too much preamble or pre-show hype for this one. So this live endeavor is pretty skinny in terms of viewership. Wanted to thank everybody for being a part of our trade deadline shows, plural. Tons of views, tons of listens on podcasts. Thank you so much to the OGs and converts. It's not so much how much play between now and the end of the 56, or that they clinch this Scotia North. It's how they play. It's how they come together in order to be prepared for what's next. And what is not concerning, but certainly part of the equation is what the hell is coming next.
Well, if you or I knew that, and we'd be making a lot of money on lottery tickets and lottery numbers and things of that nature, and predicting stocks. I mean, like I said, the 2-game losing streak is not a concern. They play Winnipeg on Thursday. They may play Vancouver Saturday and Monday, but we don't know about Vancouver's situation because of them just coming back from being shut down for a couple weeks. There are still a number of players that are still on the COVID list, so I don't know if those games are going to get played or moved someplace. So the Leafs could have 4 or 5 days off if those games get moved to later in the season. And that would be good in a sense, because then they get all their quarantine players back for the important 3 games against Winnipeg next week. I mean, right now, I think the Leafs are just in a position where let's get our house in order. Let's get our new players in the lineup. They got David Rich in the lineup last night against Calgary. Let's try to straighten out aspects of our game that have been, woeful of late, and that's the power play.
Yeah,
and get everything in place for a playoff run. I think that's what is going to dominate the next 3.5 to 4 weeks that's left in the regular season.
You got to give Keefe credit. He goes to his big money players no matter how much they struggle. Those are the guys on the power play. Those are the 3 who start the overtime, no matter how they had been playing in the previous 60. He keeps going back to his big money guys. I give him credit for throwing these dudes to the wolves. The results just aren't there, and some believe that it's time to shake the power play up completely, tip it on its head, add in guys you would never consider putting on the power play over the likes of a Matthews, Marner, Riley, and these guys. However, if this team is going to win a Stanley Cup, the big guys are going to have to lead the way, and he's hoping or hedging his bets that before the playoffs, these guys will somehow ignite again. It remains to be seen.
I think the failure of the power play is tactical more than it is like talent based. I mean, obviously, when that power play unit or a power play unit close to that, and that they had two units going back and forth in the first quarter of the season, and they were operating at almost a 40% clip, and now at the opposite end of the spectrum, they scored 2 power play goals in a month.
But can't you give different personnel an opportunity to employ and execute those tactics?
They've mixed it up. I mean, they have Jake Muzzin on the point on the second power play when it was TJ Brody or Mikko Lehtinen when he did play on that second power play. So they are mixing it up. Galchenyuk has been mixed in. Robertson has been mixed in. So they are doing that. But in the end, it comes down to that number one unit. I mean, and remember, they've gotten away from what they did earlier in the season. Earlier in the season, they had Tavares on one unit. They had Matthews and Marner on the other unit. They split the time almost evenly. They were sort of a competition of which unit was better. And now they've gone to the all their eggs in one basket with Marner, Matthews, Tavares, Riley, and somebody in front of the net. It's just not working, but it's not working because teams have discovered, the Leafs enter the zone, they dish it off to Marner or Matthews, and they're on them immediately. And they're not giving them any time to set up or shoot. Mm-hmm. They're fronting Matthews on the power play not to let his shot get through. I mean, they're just going to have to come up with some sort of solution in the next few weeks to be able to adjust and be effective on the power play.
Are the Leafs lacking a big bomber from the point? Someone who just has a complete howitzer, that puck hits off the goaltender so hard that it's going to be bouncing all over the place. It just doesn't seem like any of the shooters strike fear in the hearts of the defenders.
Well, I mean, the power play was very effective over the last few years with Riley. I mean, Riley is not a boomer. He's never going to be a boomer, but he's been his 20-goal year. He scored a few power play goals where he was just, getting it to the front of the net, getting it through the screen. And it was, he seemed to be able to have that ability to get that shot through. And that hasn't been the case this year. Caleb in the chat says Sandin has a bomb. They're not going to put Rasmus Sandin, a 20-year-old untested rookie, into the top 6 to be a power play quarterback. So it's Riley. It has to be Riley. And there's no other answer unless you go with 5 forwards, and that's a defensive nightmare because then you risk shorthanded goals going the other way. So I think, Riley is a good distributor of the puck, and, what you're going to have to do is find a way to get Matthews to get his shot to the net and to get Marner to distribute. And Marner's not shooting much anymore. It's Marner trying to pass the puck. And he was shooting more early in the year, and he's got to keep doing that.
We have to credit the opposition for making the adjustments and clogging up those lanes and projecting and forecasting what's going to happen, because the Leafs, in a lot of ways, despite all the talent, are very repetitive on the power play. The idea being that we're just more talented than you. We move the puck faster and we'll overwhelm you. Well, when you're playing the same team 4 times in 10 days, no matter how good that team is, they're professionals, and the coaching staff and the personnel are going to figure out a way to mitigate that success. On the flip side, when the curtain raises on the border and this playoff happens, and everything's amplified, and some teams come out overwhelmed, others are ready to go. You may be able to catch a team flat-footed and take on a team that you haven't played yet, and they have to deal with what everybody else has gotten accustomed to. We have Caleb Merkstrom. I love Joe Thornton and his presence with the boys, but honestly, the game is past him. He's such a liability speed-wise out there. Do they just want Joe Thornton? Like, again, he came on the scene. He played with Matthews and Marner, collected some points in the early going.
Mm-hmm.
Are we losing sight of why Joe Thornton is on this team and on this roster?
When Joe Thornton was signed, nobody expected him to be on the first line. Everybody thought he's going to be a fourth line guy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. At the beginning of the year, they were playing him on the first line. Marner and Matthews wanted to play with him. He was effective. He got hurt. He comes back. He was still effective. But now, where is he? He's on the fourth line. That's what the expectation was. Now he has not been scoring. They have this makeshift line with him, Kerfoot, and Spezza. I thought yesterday he played a little better because he had more ice time. I mean, let's face it. I mean, this is not the Joe Thornton that won the Hart Trophy. This is a 40-year-old Joe Thornton. He still can provide something. Mm-hmm. They brought him in for his character. They brought him in because he wants to win. He's never been a fast skater. I think, people are saying, well, they're going to put Riley Nash in the lineup in game one of the playoffs. You're going to put a guy who's never played a game, who's coming off a knee injury, into the lineup in game one instead of a guy who's played for your team all year. They're not doing it.
Thornton's also played 180 playoff games.
Right. And I believe subconsciously Thornton is basically conserving himself because I think you're going to, not to see a completely different Joe Thornton, but I'm saying you're going to see a throttle wide open Joe Thornton in the playoffs. Right now, this is the dog days of the regular season. Yeah. So really, I mean, I just can't see him like busting his ass to score a goal against Ottawa. Mm-hmm. And I think that they're going to give him an opportunity in the playoffs. And if he plays like this in the playoffs when it matters, then they have a guy like Riley Nash who they think was a good enough acquisition, a good enough reason to acquire because they played against them twice in the last few years. Then he might get an opportunity. But Joe Thornton, Wayne Simmons, these guys have been warriors for the team all year. They're going to play, and they're going to start in the playoffs.
If you're writing up a story about an iconic franchise in a half a century long slump with young superstars emboldened by a group of veterans, all of the names that are on this roster right now, those are the names that you would put into this story. Mm-hmm. It's true. Like, Simmons and
Spezza,
Thornton, Spezza. So that there's the hometown feel. Joe Thornton, my apologies. John Tavares, the biggest free agent signing in the history of the game. Matthews, the big American star. Marner, the guy who everybody continues. The guy who continues to everybody had always doubted, but he always rises above and exceeds the expectations. This is a really, really awesome group. It really is. And looking at the roster, it's a lot of fun, and guys that the Leafs would have considered foes for so long now a part of this organization. It really, the eclectic nature of the team and its pedigree and its capability, really, really intriguing. Just a few more minutes. Anything else you want to add, and we'll get out of here on this sneak show?
Yeah, well, first, I think the addition of Ben Hutton was a very welcome addition for those who were fearful of seeing Marty Norris Trophy winner Marinson as the first option. Ben Hutton's a solid defensive defenseman. He's never going to score a bunch of points. I do like the fact that this organization, they didn't subtract, other than Barabanov, who was barely playing, and they gave him an opportunity to go someplace and stay in the NHL. They just added to the group, and they added people of character. This is apparently a very tight-knit group. They get along well with each other. They don't want to mess with the chemistry of this team. They've added a Foligno who sounds like he's anxious to come in and try to win a Stanley Cup, and Hutton is a good guy, and Rittich is a good guy. But they're also getting guys who are going to contribute, and that was important. So I give kudos to Kyle Dubas. There's no guarantee that it's going to work. They could come up against the first round against Montreal and lose, and it's Carey Price stands on his head, or Shea Weber knocks Matthews out of the game, or something like that. it's, you know, there's no stamp to the conference or the semifinals this year. It's going to be tough to get there, but they're the most prepared for success than they have been in the Matthews-Marner era.
And they have the essence of the group won't change. If the team goes all the way and wins the cup, players are going to fall off, and the organization will acquire more talent. If the team shits the bed and loses in the first round or just doesn't win, the core group will stay the same. You may lose a big one, but bring a big one back, and that's reassuring and comforting to know that while Dubas has changed his tact when compared to seasons past, it's not as if he's going for broke. And if the team fails, I mean, it's a bet all or nothing, and then it's back to the drawing board. This team, with its core group and the players who have been signed to a longer term with you know, some room under the ceiling in terms of their production possibilities, these guys are going to be together, and this team should be contending for a considerable period of time.
Now, the big concern right now, and it's an ongoing story, just evolving over the last few hours, is that the Toronto Marlies have been shut down. Shut down for a week because someone on the team, and they're not going to specify who, or at least they haven't specified yet, is COVID positive. Now that is a concern because, as we know, the Marlies and the Leafs practice in the same facility, although they're separate. I've been to the Ford Performance Center. They're on one sheet, or they practice at Coca-Cola Coliseum, but they practice at the Ford Performance Center, and so do the Leafs. And Robertson was with the Marlies less than a week ago and got called up and has played 2 games for the Leafs, and they've isolated him because now he hasn't tested positive or anything like that, but they're just being extra careful. And on the heels of what happened with the Canucks, and today Phil Grubauer, the Avalanche starting goaltender, he's COVID positive. You know, this is something that is a big concern. I mean, you can get derailed by an injury, but your season can get derailed by a massive spread of COVID, and we've seen that happen with the Sabres. It's happened with the Canucks. It's happened with a few other teams, and let's just hope that you know, everybody's being careful and everybody is doing the right thing to stay safe and stay negative.
It is surreal. Last year, venturing into this great unknown, in hopes of at some point seeing the light and getting back to normalcy. Here we are a year later, and Ontario's in a lockdown. The U.S. was decimated for months and months and months, and it appears you guys are turning the corner with vaccines, and Ontario and Canada, looked like we weren't home and cooled, but we had things under control, and now this. I'm again, I've used this word, I'm exasperated by all of this. I can't imagine how the OGs and converts feel, and you know, the players, and you know, people wanting to excel in their craft and put on a show and be a part of something that is pounding through this pandemic, and then, you know, it's a pain in the ass for sure.
Well, I mean, it's a lousy situation, and you know, I'm not going to start getting and talking about the situation in Canada, but the NHL, and okay, I understood at the beginning of the year the NHL not wanting to establish a precedent of jumping in line, so to speak. You know, people are dying out there. People who are 65 and older, they weren't getting the vaccine, so they deserve to be first. And now in the U.S. and most places, it's everybody can get the vaccine. In Canada, right, from what I understand, it's 55 and over. But the NHL has to be concerned about their business, and they're a private business. And I know that the Canadian teams, the last thing that they would do is take away from the supply of vaccines in Canada That would be disastrous. But honestly, if I'm the NHL, I buy the vaccine from Pfizer or Moderna or whoever, and I ship it to the 7 Canadian teams because they can, they need these teams to not get infected. They need these teams to be vaccinated, and I don't think that would raise a crap storm in Canada because they weren't taking away from other people. This is something, this is potentially destabilizing. I mean, God forbid if something happened in the playoffs, like happened in the NCAA tournament last month, where a team was supposed to meet another team and they tested positive and they were out of the tournament. Yeah. If all of a sudden Edmonton or Winnipeg, everybody tests positive, their season's over with. That the team they play against is probably going to get a bye to the next round. That's the only way that you can do it.
I don't want to get overly philosophical, and you'll have people going, well, it's just an organization with money pushing itself into the conversation about who should have the vaccine and who shouldn't, and what's the hierarchy, what's the priority at this stage of the game. I'm open to hearing everything, because it's just such a pain in the ass. It really is, and people have lost their lives, and I'm not trying to minimize the suffering and the loss and the anguish that others have felt and me sound like a big baby or a suck because of what's going on. I'm just, again, I'm exasperated. I'm frustrated. I thought we would have had not the pandemic licked, but under control by now. And it seems like that's not the case. We'll leave you with this. Enzo, the commissioner, Mike's favorite. I think the Leafs have a solution for the PP, but they're not implementing it until the playoffs, so other teams can't scout it. Enzo,
Enzo, that's sort of like an NFL mentality where teams will not open up their playbook in the preseason because they want to save it for the regular season and maybe the playoffs. Maybe I buy that, but I don't think they're signing up for 2 for 38. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like, the power play last night against Calgary.
Mike, again, and I'm interrupting, and I apologize, but I can see it, and it's not as bad as when we were just doing audio. Yeah. Do you think the Leafs not doing well on the power play has something to do with the repetitiveness of the schedule and the teams they face night in and night out?
Well, it's tough. It's really tough these teams. Think of it this way: the pro scouts for the 7 Canadian teams only have to worry about 6 other teams instead of 30. So if you don't think they're going over video with a fine-tooth comb and saying, okay, this is how we prevent this guy from doing this, or this is how we prevent the power play from scoring. Yeah, of course they're doing that. So it's going to be much more difficult.
And the good thing about not doing well on the power play is we don't have a faction yelling at certain players for only scoring with the man advantage.
Well, yeah, but
I don't know. I had to bring that up. David Hayna, Cal Morale, Will 85, Batman 2778, Caleb Merkstrom, Dyslexic, Joe Shedler. You guys, we appreciate it. Uncle Blue Hat, amazing. Ronnie Smith, Ash, we love it. Thanks, guys, for being here. The sneak show. I like doing these sneak shows to see how the devotees interrupt their evenings, doing all kinds of stuff to join us for the show. We'll be back again here in the very near future. No combo tomorrow. I'm busy. Mike's busy, but certainly on Sunday, and maybe before that, who knows. Mike, have a good one, buddy.
Thanks, Norm.